Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of the Wim Lex podcast. In this episode, Alexander interviews Georgi Ganev, the CEO of Kinnevik, or Kinnevik as they say in Swedish. Kinnevik is an early investor in companies like Zalando, West Wing, and Tele2. And in this fireside, taken during the Digital Commerce Summit in Stockholm, Alexander and Georgi will discuss future trends in fashion and e-commerce. So sit back, relax, and listen.
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. So, my name is Georgi Ganev. I'm the CEO for Kinnevik. I've been in that position for about a year, started in January last year. If we go way back, I was actually fosters within the group of Kinnevik. I joined Tele2 in the beginning of 2000, and then I worked for some various companies in the group, being outside the group, being CEO for one of the larger e-commerce player in the Nordics, and then I joined Kinnevik. So basically, what we do at Kinnevik, we are an 85 soon, young company, investment company, founded in 1936. And we invest basically in 4 sectors: TMT, e-commerce marketplaces, financial services, and healthcare. And we are proud of being part of building companies rather than just investing in companies and being close to our investees. We have always been challengers, so we like to back challengers. Goes back to when Kinnevik challenged the monopoly within media and later telecom in the Nordics, created companies like MTG and Tele2. Also being pioneers of e-commerce, very early investors of Zalando. And today, as I said, we expanded into other sectors. And also the culture of Kinnevik and Kinnevik companies has always been to be very entrepreneurial. So we've had also successful spin-outs from the company. So from MTG, today we have seen companies like Metro, Qliro, obviously, and others. So it's also part of this entrepreneurial spirit that we have in the company.
How many capital is Kinnevik managing?
We have today a portfolio value as of today of roughly, I would say, 80 billion SEK.
80 billion, 8 billion euros, more or less.
Yeah.
And did your e-commerce venture started with Zalando, or did you do some e-commerce
much
before?
Much earlier. I think we were definitely the pioneers within MTG when CDON.com was basically a internal project within MTG.
Oh, okay.
So that was,
when was it?
That was in the early days. I would say maybe Marcus or Matthias knows that. 1999.
1999. The internet was around here in e-commerce. 1999 already. Yeah. It's quite simple.
And of course, Zalando will be part of since the early days. We're one of the first investors.
What was your investment hypothesis in e-commerce, especially around like the 2010s, 2011, when Zalando became more important? Because you missed, I think, the first speech. There was like a shift in the perception of retail models in e-commerce. So it was in 2008, 2009, there was like a big hope that there will be a lot of category killers online, fashion, mattress, bikes, whatever. And now it's all about platforms. What was your portfolio approach, your investment approach like 10 years ago when you started with this ventures?
First of all, this industry was far less mature 10 years back. If we go back and look at everything that has happened, there are so many new business opportunities and business models that we see today, which we can come back to and discuss. We can call them platforms, right? But I think the main observation from Kinnevik's perspective was the shift from offline to online, whereas the customer basically saw advantages in convenience, transparency in pricing, and so forth, buying online. And that's the mega trend that I think Kinnevik took a real big bet on, in combination, of course, with the team behind the company, which was also the most important factor in the investment with Zalando. And that's also kind of very much linked to the Kinnevik DNA, to see these mega trends, to see them actually from a customer point of view before they really take off, and be hopefully then early in that investment. And we have to remember that Kinnevik has always been transforming its portfolio. So during these years, some of the older assets were actually sold, like coarseness, the paper industry business. And a lot of the capital was shifted into the e-commerce businesses. And at that time, it was not that appreciated by shareholders because they didn't understand the trend. Okay. And today, I mean, the rest is history.
And if you compare the matureness level of the megatrend e-commerce from the more developed market like Germany or the UK to a less developed market, from my perspective, to Sweden, would you say Sweden is like 2 years behind, 5 years behind, or the same level as Germany? Because obviously the customers are probably looking out for the same convenience level, which you're wrapping up as a megatrend.
I think the online penetration in certain categories are quite high in Sweden, but then there are certain sectors where we see a much lower penetration. But what's also obvious is that the whole platform model has not become as mature in the Nordics compared to other countries. And that can relate to many things. One is obviously Amazon that you've been talking about the day that Amazon have been driving that kind of platform thinking in other countries.
Yeah, now in fashion, it's like maybe we can deep dive first, like in this your e-commerce investments a little bit, and then we can think about the platform stuff. So from this chart, so can everybody read this chart more or less? So investments, sozusagen green stuff, disinvestments, yellow stuff. Hopefully it's readable. And then here's like Zalando is popping up in 2011, Home24. Also a Rocket Internet business, online furniture. I don't know if is Home24 active in Sweden.
No,
I don't think so. That was the same hope. They tried to copy the success of Zalando, saying if it's kind of working for fashion, though it's going to be working for furniture also, because furniture is more or less the same size, the market size. It's about 70 billion. 40 to 70 billion, depending on which source you're trusting per year, but it didn't like fly like Zalando. So obviously, Zalando, your major stake you took in 2011 was like a good investment, like when you look at like their development. But then you also invested in similar businesses like Lazada, which is like a Zalando clone in Russia, was it? I'm not sure.
Southeast Asia.
Southeast Asia. So, and this is very interesting to understand like megatrends. So, obviously, you had a very good timing in seeing the right player for the right megatrend here. Is this business easy to copy for other markets and other megatrends, or is it like good luck to find such an?
I mean, first of all, I think we need to. This was well before my time, obviously, so I shouldn't take credit for that. But what I can say is that it's too easy to say there was a good timing and luck, because when Kinnevik invested in Zalando the first time, we didn't deploy all the capital. We deployed capital during the way.
Yeah.
And somewhere around 2012, if I'm not wrong, basically Kinnevik deployed 272 million euros, and then another 100 million euros the year after. So 372 million euros, quite a lot of money also for a company of Kinnevik size, into that business. And of course, doing that kind of large, big bets is also shows that you have conviction in your idea and in your team running this business.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to actually spread some money out and be lucky and see what that investment takes you, but actually to really understand the model and stand behind it, that's a different thing.
But even if you were not the driving force or not CEO at this time, what was the shareholder reception in 2011? Because it was really new. E-commerce was not as mature as it is today. It was not clear if Zalando ever could turn out roughing and putting so much money, even from a Kinnevik perspective. So what was the perception of?
I mean, the sentiment was clearly really bad. Kind of someone is sitting and smoking and inhaling at Skeppsbron. I'm joking, of course, but of course that was the sentiment in the market, that people did not really understand why do they deploy so much capital into this business that will never become profitable and is overvalued. That was the sentiment, and I think for many people. But the conviction about the team, the conviction about this mega trend that is happening, whether we like it or not, was so clear for Kinnevik. So we continued to invest during these years, and the company grew into a leading player in Europe.
Yeah, pretty much a leading player. And it's interesting you're bringing out Amazon. Though what we're seeing with Amazon is in their playing field, let's call it like marketplace playing field, it seems to be winner takes it all market. And when we discuss with other stakeholders of the fashion industries, with the people from Asos or AboutYou, the industry, there's some belief that it might be the same for fashion, because right now there's a couple of online players putting a lot of money in customer acquisition on Google, Instagram, Facebook. And they say, okay, the only thing in e-commerce where we really earn money is to build monopolies. So even if it's from a cartel perspective, not really wished. So it makes sense from an investment perspective. Do you see a trend or like a movement into the direction that you try to build local monopolies, as we're seeing right now with food delivery services, and then maybe you will be able to join forces with other companies that are the local heroes in other markets, like in Asos, for example, in the UK. Is that predictable, or is it like pure luck from the right shareholders at the right times meet? Is it something you can manage?
No, I don't think so, really. I mean, we rather would like to look at the company we invest in and see that's either going to be very successful within each niche, whatever that is, or have something that is truly scalable or cross-border and maybe even into other sectors. If we look at Zalando, for instance, they've built up a platform that is, of course, extremely strong in Europe with many loyal customers. And at their latest Capital Markets Day now, end of February, they also disclosed the ambition to increase their partner program, so meaning the marketplace part of the business. So in some years' time, in 23, 24, 40% of the total GMV will actually be on their partner program. And I think that's definitely the right strategy. So they kind of leverage their position as a platform. And they say now that Zalando will rather be the starting point of fashion than a typical retailer. So if you compare yourself with Spotify, that will be the starting point of music, or Netflix being the starting point of movies. Zalando is the starting point of fashion. And of course, that's a big bet. But I think when you are Zalando and you have that many customers and also traffic coming from unpaid sources, you have the customer data, you have the relations to the many brands, then you have the ability actually to build that position.
Yeah, and I also read that they are getting rid of their own labels. I think the company was called Z Labels. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
That they created all these like standard internal labels to compete with the fashion branch, just in order to attract more real labels for the platform.
I think it's a combination of kind of underlining that they're an unbiased platform. But the other reason also, from my perspective, is to focus. Even if you're a large company, if you want to be really successful in your niche, you need to focus. And if you're going to be the platform of fashion or the starting point of fashion, it's very important that everyone in the company understands that. I would say that's also the only reason why Spotify, in my view, actually can have the chance to compete with giants, because they are the best within music, even if you compare them with a company with Google size.
And now I showed a chart with like the biggest e-commerce businesses in Sweden. I don't know how accurate this is, but I think Zalando was top 5, top 6 or something. Do you think there's like local players here from Sweden able to compete with Zalando's or Amazon if it coming with the same force it was coming to Germany?
You always have local assortment. You always have local knowledge that can be an advantage if you're here. There are many good players online, like Boost, I would say, on clothes, Nelly for a certain segment, with loyal customers. And of course, that is less it's more difficult if you're running the business from abroad. But what I've seen throughout the last maybe 2 years is that Zalando's been investing a lot in the Nordic region. First of all, on the fulfillment side, with a new center here outside Stockholm, and also assortment that is much more skewed towards the interest of the Swedish and the Nordic people. So over time, it's going to be difficult to leverage only on that kind of local knowledge.
But is there like investment cases where we'd say, okay, I would invest like in a Stockholm or Sweden-based company, heavily going into furniture or like other new assortments coming up now online? Where you say, okay, that there's enough potential here to grow from Sweden, like Spotify did, into the German markets, or is it like it's like because this investment is like already 9 years ago, so the market really moved ahead. So what I'm saying, and here's a couple of retailers and manufacturers, and you have the money, literally. So it's like cases where you would say, okay, I would put like a 50 million, 100 million check on business cases based in Sweden. Because they're so able to compete with the Zalandos and Amazon, I believe in this kind of local advantage, because I don't see any local advantage and assortment at all.
Now, I mean, my point, maybe I was not clear. I think you can have that during a limited period of time, but over time, I agree with you that kind of capacity will not actually last forever, and its scale matters. Today, I would rather focus on investments around the ecosystem of e-commerce. I mean, we talk about the platform model. Platform for me can be everything from a light marketplace where you just aggregate traffic, right, until a managed experience for the customers where we'll take responsibility for the whole value chain. And then you can have even the kind of Shopify or Ocado solutions where you sell your technology to other retailers that wants to go online. There are many things. And then on top of that, you have ecosystem as, payments or last mile logistics. And I think what Kinnevik wants to leverage is its competence and experience of being a pioneer within e-commerce since a long time, and actually identify opportunities around these platforms and invest in those, rather than just go into a one-legged player.
Yeah, you're probably very well connected to the boards of other Swedish companies, and we are very well connected to a lot of German boards. And when you're following the market, as we are following the market, and really try to understand what Zalando and Amazon is doing, you become kind of paranoid. Probably I shared this paranoia with you in my first presentation. But when we are discussing this with board members from, let's say, companies with an analog DNA, they're still thinking in their standard Boston Consulting, McKinsey PowerPoint sets, and they don't fear an Amazon or Zalando for their category. Is it the same here in Sweden? If you go to very big companies and discussing with them the effects of platform economies, the Zalandos and Amazon, is there like a common understanding of these developments?
I don't know if you can go that far that they say they don't fear. They understand that the consumers are moving into the online space. What I do see and do hear, however, and that actually goes for a global perspective, is that everyone sitting on assets, especially if they're brick and mortar, wants to highlight them as an advantage in this transformation. And honestly, I've not seen one example globally of a company that has been transforming from an offline to an online or omni-channel model, whatever you call it, in a very successful way. One case that people talk about is actually Nordstrom in US, and they've spent many years, and they come out with more or less the same profits or slightly less after 5-6 years. So to build up a machine from the position where you actually have all these costs linked to stores, physical stores, and do that transformation is very difficult.
Okay.
But typically when I meet people that have a lot of these stores, they want to have that cozy discussion in the boardroom that all of these things are actually assets, not the legacy that we're going to have to get rid of.
I agree 100% with the assessment, though there's not one case worldwide where an analog company transformed into a company that was able to get market share back from the Amazons or whoever attacked them. But what is then the strategy you would suggest for those companies? Try again?
No, I think there's a different starting point. You have to do it in order to survive. It's a protective action. So it's a very defensive strategy, and you have no choice. And I think the opportunity for the pure players is actually to capture that window of opportunity where the offline players are actually still running around in circles with the consultants, as you referred to, and cannot really take that decision. That's your sweet spot. And I think if you look at Zalando, that's what they did until the large offline retailers started to realize that maybe online is just not a thing that will go away. but actually a way that customers prefer shopping. So I think that is what we've seen, and we will see it many more times now since the platform model will develop.
Yeah. Do you see better chances for B2B based businesses?
B2B, I see basically no reason for why the B2B business shouldn't develop in the same way. We're lagging behind, and the main reason for that is that a lot of B2B sales, it's built upon relationship with a sales force, and that sales force has a kind of connection and creates some loyalty to the customer or to the brand. But over time, that will also develop. I mean, we see Amazon for Business in US growing very, very fast. So especially for, I would say, the segment small and medium-sized businesses, we will definitely see similar platform solutions as we see for the consumer side. That's my view.
What would be then your strategic advice to, and we have some retailers and manufacturers here, smaller ones, and now Amazon is entering the market, most probably, and they will do it with force. What is your strategic advice in terms of being successful as a business in 10 years from now? What should they do? Should they go on Amazon exclusively? Should they build their own e-commerce infrastructure? Should they partner up with Zalando if they are in the fashion industry?
I don't think it's... there's no silver bullet out there that will solve everything in one go. I mean, I think we just heard a very interesting experience from Happy Brush, right? That also being a market on the marketplace of Amazon can be challenging for several reasons. I didn't have a clue about this account being hacked and everything what that can lead to. But of course, my message is you need to think very carefully about your go-to-market strategy. And I actually don't think it's going to be one size fits all. You need most probably to find some kind of balance between all these channels.
Okay, then let's go back again to the bigger companies, and where you're saying these are doing, the action is actually driven by fear, not by ambitions. Would be cool, but in 99% it's fear. What is the element that is hindering those businesses being successful? If they know the strategy, if let's say they want to become a platform, if they know the sheer momentum of Amazon and Zalando entering the market, what hinders them most? Is it like human resources? Is it execution capabilities? Is it legacy infrastructure? Too many people involved in the decision making?
I think it boils down to execution at the end of the day, because we know where this is going, right? And we can fool ourselves that it won't happen and so forth. But everyone knows that this business will just, continue to develop in this direction. Mm. We need to kind of accept these platforms that are out there, whether it's niched within fashion or if it's a generalist such as Amazon, and get your act together and basically execute on that kind of multi-channel partner strategy is the most important thing.
Yeah. So is there a mega trend or a case you were not able to see early enough where you would say today, okay, what the fuck, why haven't we not invested in ABC, whatever, which you can remember?
I mean, many, of course. I mean, as an investor, you see cases all the time where you either had opportunity to invest or you didn't take the time to basically look at them carefully. We can do it in alphabetical order if you want. You can start with A. So, I mean, Airbnb, that would be a quite good company to be invested in the early days.
There was a chance for Kinnevik to do this?
Sorry?
There was a chance for Kinnevik?
I mean, I think that Kinnevik, as a long-term investor with very patient capital and a good track record, has the opportunity actually to invest in many companies. I don't say that we are welcome in all of them. Mm. And of course, the competition capital is out there. But we have something unique, I would say, in being this long-term capital, but still having the track record of building companies. And, we can continue. B, Booking.com would have been nice as well.
Yeah.
Another A is Adyen. So we haven't just come to C. So, I mean, there are many companies out there. And, of course, seeing what is happening in this, I call it, again, ecosystem. It's a worn-out word, but still, I think we have the opportunity, but it's also our obligation to look at adjacent investments around these ecosystems and do those investments early enough.
Is that then your now investment hypothesis, where you say, okay, the first steps of e-commerce in, let's say, fashion and maybe even furniture, consumer electronics, that is now so far developed, there's no good investment opportunity anymore. So let's take it a step further and do like all the infrastructure around. Could be even warehouse management software or whatever is needed. Is that what you're looking for right now?
I mean, again, we have our 4 sectors, as I said, so TMT, e-commerce marketplace, financial services, and healthcare. And around those sectors, we try to understand the changes in consumer behaviors and what that will lead to. One example is our investments in a last mile logistics company in Sweden called Budbee. I mean, we all know that last mile logistics is key to drive a high customer satisfaction. And with our knowledge of that and with our insight within e-commerce, we thought it would be interesting to actually to make that investments. We have continued in that space and invested in 2 basically online grocers. So Colonial in Norway and Mathem in Sweden. And the same thing there. I see that from a different point of view. Maybe that model is not scalable cross-border, but when you build that customer relationship and a local last mile logistics, it's more like an infrastructure play. You have 20 houses on a street, and if you actually serve 10 of them with food deliveries maybe once a week, you have built up a relationship that is very difficult for the second, third, and fourth player to actually capture. So it's either that, being very kind of ring-fenced where you do your investments, that is interesting for me, or you find a asset-light model that you can scale globally without, that is not as capital intense. So we have clearly now taken a few bets during last year and early this year to continue to invest in this space.
Yeah. So if you're saying that the biggest risk for older company is not finding the right way into execution, so even if there are the correct assets, what would you say then the biggest risk for a company like Zalando when you're looking into the next 5 to 10 years?
Clearly 2 risks or 2 challenges, I would say. First of all, when you're growing your company, how do you keep your entrepreneurial spirit? How do you keep this fast decision making in mind? And I'm very impressed when I meet with the founders of Zalando and hear how they kind of talk about the culture. And that's of course, you need to have that tone from the top. But how do you kind of implement that culture and nurture that culture in a very large organization with layers of management and so forth? That's one thing.
And Zalando is doing it still well?
I think Zalando is, if you look at their numbers, they're still a very impressive company. I think they do well on the cultural aspect as well for being so large. But it's a big challenge to keep that speed when you have new players coming up. The only thing you know with the new players, unfortunately, luckily, is that they will also become large one day and then they will struggle. But the second thing is focus. Because I also think that it's easy when you grow to kick off so many different initiatives because you have the opportunity. You either have the cash flow or you have the venture capital coming in, whatever it is, right? So you can kick off all these things. And to prune your business, to constantly basically shut things down that do not work is also a challenge. And of course, when you have a larger organization as well, that many people want to protect their own kind of projects and businesses, that is something that I see companies struggle with.
Okay, Very cool to know. Is there any questions from the audience side? It's a very unique opportunity to ask one of the biggest capital giver here in Stockholm interesting questions. Any question from your side?
It's not so unique. They can call me if they want.
Yeah. Great. Not yet. So probably you're going to stay a little bit for lunch, and invite you, of course, for the master classes. Then you can learn about the how to hack an Amazon account. I don't know if this is like it's part of your master class, Mark. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights on Zalando and the market and the investment view on Kinnevik. It's from my point of view one of the most interesting cases to see how this market is developing, because there's now some bigger players around, and I guess there will be some joint ventures in the future to earn more money out of this. But I'm very, very lucky that you're sharing more or less the same core learnings in your speech that I've shared before in terms of execution and speed, which I was given. And we hadn't had a chance actually to talk before the first time we were meeting here. So it's not even
either we're both right or both wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, the market will prove the market.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.